It all started with a phone call that shattered the fragile peace of our home. The voice on the other end was trembling, filled with a fear so palpable it sent shivers down my spine. "You have to come to the house now," said Carolyn Perron. "Something is in the house and it's tearing us apart." As a paranormal investigator, I had heard countless tales of hauntings and spectral sightings, but there was something in Carolyn's voice, a raw, unfiltered terror that made this call different. It was the kind of fear that only comes from witnessing something truly inexplicable. My partner Lorraine and I packed our equipment hurriedly, our minds racing with possibilities. The Perron family's farmhouse in Harrisville, Rhode Island, was reputedly a hotspot for supernatural activity, but nothing could have prepared us for what we were about to encounter. The drive there was a blur, a mixture of nervous anticipation and professional detachment. When we finally arrived, the house loomed large against the darkening sky, an old structure that seemed to groan under the weight of its own history. We were greeted by Roger Perron, his face etched with exhaustion and desperation. "Thank God you're here," he muttered, leading us inside. The atmosphere within the house was thick with an oppressive energy, a tangible sense of dread that seemed to cling to the walls. Carolyn sat in the living room, clutching her youngest daughter, April, who was pale and silent, her eyes wide with an unspoken fear. "Tell us everything," Lorraine said gently, her voice a calming contrast to the tension in the room. Carolyn took a deep breath and began to recount the series of events that had plagued their family since they moved into the farmhouse. It started with small things, objects moving on their own, strange noises in the night, but soon the occurrences escalated. The girls, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April, had all experienced terrifying visions and physical attacks. "There's one room," Carolyn said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The cellar." The moment we stepped into this house, I knew something was wrong with that place. It's cold, and the air feels different, heavy. Roger nodded, adding that they had tried to keep the children away from the cellar, but the disturbances seemed to be growing stronger, as if the house itself were angry. We decided to start our investigation in the cellar, the epicenter of the family's fear. Descending the creaking wooden stairs, the temperature dropped noticeably. Our flashlights barely penetrated the inky darkness, casting long, eerie shadows that danced across the damp stone walls. Lorraine, sensitive to the presence of spirits, paused, her eyes widening in alarm. "There's something here," she said, her voice trembling. As we set up our equipment, strange things began to happen almost immediately. A cold breeze swept through the cellar, despite there being no windows or vents. Our EMF meters spiked erratically, and Lorraine began to murmur softly, as if in a trance. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind us with a force that rattled the foundations of the house. We were plunged into darkness, the only sound our own ragged breathing. Lorraine's eyes rolled back, and she began to speak in a voice that was not her own. "You have trespassed," she intoned, her voice a guttural growl. "This is my domain." I tried to reach her, but an unseen force pushed me back, pinning me against the wall. The temperature continued to plummet, and I could see my breath forming in clouds before me. Just as quickly as it had started, the oppressive force lifted, and Lorraine collapsed into my arms, gasping for breath. We stumbled out of the cellar, shaken but determined. "It's an old spirit," Lorraine said once she had regained her composure. "It feels ancient and very, very angry." The Perron family watched us with wide eyes, their fear mirrored in our own expressions. That night, we decided to stay in the house to monitor the activity. Lorraine and I took turns keeping watch, our equipment set up to capture any signs of paranormal presence. Around midnight, as I sat in the living room reviewing footage, I heard a faint whispering sound. It grew louder, more insistent, until it was a cacophony of voices. The room grew colder, and I saw my breath hanging in the air once more. The whispering coalesced into a single, malevolent voice. "Get out!" it hissed. "Leave this place!" The lights flickered and then went out completely. I fumbled for my flashlight, my hands shaking. When I finally managed to turn it on, The beam illuminated a figure standing at the far end of the room. It was a woman, her face contorted in rage, her eyes black voids. She pointed a finger at me, and I felt a searing pain in my chest, as if I were being burned from the inside out. I screamed, and the figure vanished. Lorraine rushed into the room, her face pale. "What happened?" she asked. But I could barely speak. The pain subsided, leaving me gasping for air. "It's the spirit," I managed to say. "It's stronger than we thought." The rest of the night passed in a haze of fear and confusion. Every creak, every whisper seemed amplified, and the oppressive feeling of being watched never left us. By dawn, we were exhausted, but we had gathered enough evidence to confirm that something truly malevolent was haunting the Perron family. As we prepared to leave, Carolyn approached us, her face drawn and weary. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling. I looked at Lorraine, who nodded. "We'll need to perform a cleansing," she said, "but this spirit is strong. It won't be easy." As we drove away from the farmhouse, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were being watched, that the spirit's malevolent presence was following us. Little did I know the events of that night were only the beginning. The real horror was yet to come, and we would soon find ourselves facing a darkness more profound and terrifying than anything we had ever encountered. When we returned to the farmhouse the next evening, the air was thick with an uneasy silence. The Perron family greeted us with a mixture of hope and fear, their eyes searching ours for reassurance. We had brought additional equipment and a priest who had agreed to assist with the cleansing. Father O'Malley, a kind but stern man, had seen his share of exorcisms and was prepared for a battle of wills against the dark entity. We began by blessing each room, starting with the cellar. Father O'Malley recited prayers, his voice strong and unwavering, as Lorraine and I spread holy water throughout the space. The oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift slightly, but the air remained heavy, as if the house itself were holding its breath, waiting. As we moved through the house, the tension grew. In the girls' room, where the majority of the disturbances had occurred, the temperature dropped sharply. Andrea, the oldest daughter, stood by the door clutching a rosary. "It's here," she whispered. "I can feel it watching us." Suddenly, the room was filled with a deafening roar. Furniture shook violently, and the bed levitated off the ground, crashing back down with a force that splintered the wooden frame. The entity was angry, resisting our attempts to cleanse the space. Father O'Malley continued his prayers, his voice rising above the chaos. Lorraine was standing near the window, her eyes closed, her lips moving silently as she communicated with the spirit. "It's a woman," she said finally, opening her eyes. "A spirit named Bathsheba. She believes she owns this house and wants everyone out." The name Bathsheba sent a chill down my spine. According to local legend, Bathsheba Sherman had lived in the area in the 19th century and was rumored to be a witch. She was accused of sacrificing her infant to the devil, though no formal charges were ever filed. Her spirit, it seemed, had not found peace and was now wreaking havoc on the Perron family. As the cleansing ritual continued, Bathsheba's resistance grew more violent. Books flew off shelves, doors slammed shut, and a foul odor permeated the air. I felt a sharp pain in my side, and when I looked down, I saw deep scratches forming on my skin, as if invisible claws were tearing into me. I cried out, and Lorraine rushed to my side, her eyes filled with concern. "She's trying to break us," Lorraine said. "We need to stay strong." But it was easier said than done. Every minute felt like an eternity as we battled against an unseen force that seemed to grow more powerful with each passing second. Father O'Malley continued his prayers, his voice unwavering. "In the name of God, I command you to leave this house," he intoned, his words echoing through the room. For a moment, there was silence. Then, with a final, ear-piercing scream, the entity seemed to retreat, the air in the room lightening as the temperature returned to normal. Exhausted, we collapsed onto the floor, the adrenaline slowly draining from our bodies. The Perron family gathered around us, their faces etched with relief and gratitude. "Is it over?" Carolyn asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I think we've weakened it," Lorraine said, "but this spirit is strong. It may come back. You need to stay vigilant. The following weeks were a blur of monitoring and follow-up visits. The activity in the house diminished significantly, though occasional disturbances still occurred. It seemed that Bathsheba's grip on the house had been broken, but her presence lingered like a shadow, a reminder of the darkness that once held sway over the Perron family. Years later, as I look back on that time, I am reminded of the resilience and strength of the human spirit in the face of true evil. The Perron family endured unimaginable terror, yet they stood strong, united in their fight against the darkness. Their story, the true story behind The Conjuring, serves as a testament to the power of faith, hope, and love.